Yeah, welcome to the Making of Me podcast, where we explore the experience that shape who we have become. Today, I'm joined by Maggie Mccane, a psychotherapist who challenge traditional therapy model and help people understand why they feel stuck even when they have done everything right. This conversation is about trauma, healing, and what actually works. It's really a pleasure having you on the show, Maggie.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So, Maggie, what are some of the challenges that shape you into who you are today?
Okay, starting with a bang.
Yeah.
There's a couple moments in my life that, yeah, I mean, I guess you could call them challenges. They're more of like those confrontational moments where you really have to decide what do you want to do with that information and who do you want to be. And so I have a couple of those. I was living in Geneva, Switzerland when I was 10, 11, and 12 years old. And we were at an international school. So there was people from all over the world. And I was speaking with a woman, or a woman, a young girl at the time, a classmate. And she had said that in her country, people are so hungry that they die. And of course, in
Mm.
America, that happens too. But I was just so young, I didn't realize, the severity of poverty throughout the whole world. So in that moment, it really struck me of like, how is that possible that people could be so hungry that they would die? And I think that was a really pivotal moment, as a young child, as a young girl,
Yeah.
to really want to commit my life to doing something about that. And so I think that is one of the things that led me to get my degree in social work, my master's in social work, which just really highlights justice and equality and like fighting for the rights of people. So I would think that's one example.
Wow, amazing, amazing. So you work with people who are high achieving yet feel stuck. Why does that happen?
Oh my gosh, I mean, such loaded questions, right? There's so many reasons why that happens, and I just really became passionate about this because, it's one thing if you're really struggling in life, right? Then
Yeah.
there's so many options of what you can do to improve your life or improve your situation. But it's another thing when things seemingly are going really well in life. You have a good job, you have a good family, you're married, you have children, you're healthy, but then you still feel like something is missing. You're still struggling with maybe anxiety, depression, perfectionism. And so that really caught my interest of people who have tried everything that they can think of to help themselves feel better and still go to bed at night and feel like they're not good enough or not worthy. And so that really has become the population that I have really targeted, kind of my niche in the mental health world, because I really believe that we are all capable of achieving our 100% potential in life and elevating to whatever level we want to reach. But sometimes we just don't know what to do next.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Maggie. So how do small repeated experience affect the nervous system over time?
Yes. Okay. So this would be kind of even, I realized I didn't really answer your last question of like, why does this happen? So in the work that I do, I really come at this from a trauma lens. So people might have different perspectives, but the work that I do really comes from my understanding of trauma, which is ever evolving and growing. But really what happens, okay, so our brains, well, let me ask you, Aro, do you know at what age are our brains fully developed?
I think I remember. I just lost track of it now. I can't remember anymore.
Okay. What would you guess? What would you think?
Okay, develop. I think it's going to be our 20s. Yeah. I think that is the only thing I can think of now.
Yeah, no, you're right. At 25 is like the agreed upon
Okay.
age that our brain is fully developed. A lot of people don't get that right. They think where our brain is developed by the age of 5 or 10, but it really takes some time for our brain to develop.
Yeah.
So during that time, up until we're 25 years old, our brain is constantly trying to figure out the world and make sense of the world
Hmm.
and make sense of who we are. So what happens then in our earlier years is we might misinterpret information. That's understandable. Brain isn't fully developed. But then what happens when we misinterpret information is our brain will, again, always trying to seek patterns and repetitive behavior, like you said. So our brain might misinterpret a situation and start to believe that we're not good enough, or we're
Hmm.
not enough, or we're unworthy, or we're unloved. And then that lie, or we call it a negative cognition in the work that I do, cements into our brain, into our learning. And so these are the people that I tend to end up working with is like things are going so well, but they have this memory, this negative cognition lodged in their brain, in their learning. And that's what we need to go back and unlearn or rewire. So just like you're saying, these repetitive beliefs or statements that we might be saying to ourselves, probably not even consciously, probably subconsciously, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not
Mm.
lovable. And it's destroying our relationships and our self, but we might not even know it's there because it happened so long ago. Does that make sense?
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Why does it take much time to actually unlearn a whole lot of this particular owing to repetitions while growing up, well, before the age of 25? Why does it take a whole lot of time to learn a whole lot of habits and difficult to unlearn them after they have actually more like formats and habits?
Such a good question. Okay, so I think, let me just think if I have a better answer than this. I think, okay, think about, I give this example sometimes. Like if you were hiking a mountain and you hiked the same trail over and over and over again, it would become like a deep groove, right? It would
Yeah.
become like really well known, easy to see, easy to follow, easy to track. And then one day you decide to take a different route. Now we're having to navigate through brush and kind of find a different direction, and it's a little bit trepidatious. It's the same thing when we're learning and unlearning habits. And so it really does take that, like you were saying, that repetition. But honestly, like what I work a lot with my clients with is being very conscious of your thinking, because your thinking controls your
Mm.
feelings, which controls your behaviors. And so a lot of us did not grow up learning how to think about our thoughts. And it's called metacognition, this idea of like, what am I thinking about that's leading me to continue to make that decision or engage in that behavior that I know I don't want to anymore? So is it again that thought of I'm never going to achieve anything anyways,
Yeah.
I'm not worth it, I'm a failure? If we can get conscious of like what is that thought that you keep telling yourself
Mm.
that causes you to keep making that decision, that is the gold. And I work with so many people who are like, I didn't think about anything, Maggie, I just did it. And it's simply not true. Our brains do not turn off. They are always thinking, they are always conscious, but are we staying present with those thoughts and that thinking?
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Maggie. I think your explanation just shine light to us more like what I was asking for, being that, yeah, your thinking actually control your behavior. So let's imagine more like, yeah, thinking is more like a command that actually make us do things. And when the command is changed, we have a different result compared to when what is dominant. It's just what has been laying over time and it keep giving that command. We keep getting the same result. Yeah, amazing. So, Maggie, what is one major myth about traumas that keep people from healing?
Gosh, claims. Like I work with people, so even like friends and family who will come to me and be like, "Oh, she said that she could do, I hired a therapist who said they could do good trauma work, and we're not doing any of it." She's like giving me her, the therapist is giving me her opinion and telling me about her life. And that just drives me crazy because I think we have people who are finally willing and ready to talk about the hard stuff and do the hard work. And then we have these people who are claiming that they can help clients get there and they just absolutely cannot. So I think that's a huge barrier right now that I feel like I'm fighting against, of helping people understand the difference of like who are true trauma professionals and who are just like claiming to be that and they really are not.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I think this just speaks volume on why some person doesn't get to kind of trust those who they actually share their stories with, being that a whole lot of them does not have the correct approach towards handling it. And I'm glad we're having this particular conversation. So,
Yeah.
Maggie, you have worked in jail, child welfare, and private practice. How did those environments shape your approach?
Okay, yeah, great question. So I am really passionate about the population of people who others may overlook, right? So one of my first jobs in the mental health field was with juvenile sex offenders, and I think that helped prepare me to like not be scared at all to go into the jails and do mental health work there, because so often people have just made a horrible mistake, and it is a horrible mistake that they need to take accountability and responsibility for, but more than likely, they just had a difficult upbringing, probably complex trauma, and they never learned the tools to manage their feelings. And then they got involved in the wrong situations, or, so many different reasons people end up committing crimes, but they're just people. right? And so I think that was something that was highlighted in my work with the juvenile sex offenders as well as in the jail, is like you think that you're going to see this huge, scary, horrible person, but really the person across from you is just like a sad 14-year-old who made a horrible mistake and who just needs to learn what consent means or what intimacy really means. Or in the jail system, right? Like really you just have this like sad 50-year-old man who is just like doesn't have any feelings of self-worth and is just utilizing the wrong tools to get attention. And it's like, you could actually make something of yourself and people would admire you. Your kids would love you. You don't need to continue to commit these horrible crimes with the intention of, it could be a variety of reasons, right? Maybe providing for your family, maybe trying to fill a void of emptiness and loneliness, but they're just people, right? So I think that's the bottom line, is like everyone is just trying to do their very best. And a lot of us weren't given the tools to thrive. And we learned unhealthy coping skills. And then we just need to relearn new, healthy, adaptive coping skills. And I really believe that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maggie. Everyone is doing their best. It's just that sometimes they don't have the correct blueprints going to be where they are growing up or what they should actually focus on. Yeah, amazing. So, why do you believe that the traditional 15-minute therapy model doesn't work for everyone?
I love this question. Okay, so in all fairness, the 50-minute weekly therapy session does work for some people, and I do have clients that continue to prefer that. But when I am doing the deep trauma work that I do, EMDR therapy is the primary modality I use, and I'm happy to talk about that if you'd like me to. But we are going into, again, childhood memories, childhood negative cognition. It is so hard to do like your 10-minute check-in, 20 minutes of work, and then a 10-minute close, talking about homework, scheduling the next session, right? Like if you only get, did I do that math right? 20, 30, 40, maybe a little bit more than that. Let's say 30 minutes of good therapy work between the check-in and the check-out. 30 minutes is not enough time to get a client really deep into their subconscious. We're doing subconscious work here, and then get them out, make sure they're regulated, make sure they're ready to go face their family or drive or go back to work. So when I have 2 to 4 hours with a client, which is what I'm trying to do more of, and lots of my clients are catching, it's just new. So people just don't,
Yeah.
it's hard and uncomfortable. I can help a client take 10 steps forward in one day if I have 4 hours with them, right? Like we can do months of therapy in one day when you have 4 hours uninterrupted, focused, good trauma work. And so that I've been really passionate about that. And I've been seeing, like, part of me was like, okay, is this just me? Like, am I being biased? But even the clients, I had a woman I worked with recently. I had never seen her before. It was our very first session. We had 4 hours together. And at the end of our 4 hours, she said, I can't even remember the way I used to think. Before I met you earlier today, Maggie, 4 hours ago, I can't even remember how I would think those things. My thoughts and my thinking are so different right now. I have a completely different perspective on my life. Why wouldn't I want to do that for people? That is incredible.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. So true. Yeah, amazing. So lovely. So how do the body store traumas and why is body-based work so important?
Yes. So it's really interesting. I think that some people are more cognitive. Some people are just more in their head. They are more like thinkers. But then you do, and so that's kind of the traditional model of therapy, of like even what we were discussing. What are you thinking
Yeah.
about? Tell me your memories, tell me your visuals that come up for you. But not everybody's like that. A lot of people are more feelers and they're more body based and they can tell you more easily. My stomach hurts, my heart is pounding, I'm shaking. Obviously, the brain and the body are connected. I focus more on wherever the client feels like they can focus more on. So I have more, some clients who want to talk about their thoughts and their thinking patterns, and I have more people who talk about their feelings and how their body feels. Again, thoughts, feelings, behaviors are always interconnected. So it doesn't really matter where we go with it, because it's all connected.
Yeah, amazing. Thoughts, feelings, and body, they're actually connected. Yeah, that's actually more like giving for it. Oh, thank you for that. So, what is one practical tool someone can use right now to feel more regulated?
So, I mean, again, like not knowing any more details about this person, I would probably recommend starting with the basics, which again, like the basics get overlooked because we want to do kind of the new thing or the harder thing. But really, if you're not getting enough sleep, like if you're not getting that, like men need more like 7, women need more like 9 hours of sleep, which is actually really interesting. I don't know if you've heard of this, Aro, but prior sleep studies were only done on males. So when they used to say 7 to 8 hours is the recommended amount of sleep per night, that was solely based on male
Yeah,
participants. And now that they've done more studies on females, they're saying females need more like 8 to 9 hours of sleep. So I like to say 9 to 10 just because I love my sleep.
yeah,
But if you're a female consistently getting 6 to 7 hours of sleep a night, like you're already going to be dysregulated, just like period. So making sure that you are getting adequate sleep. Hydration is another really big one that, again, is so simple. But if you're not drinking sufficient water, your body is going to be in dehydration mode, which means survival mode, which means we're
yeah,
not going to regulate very well. So
yeah,
again, not knowing anything more about this person, I would say really make sure you're getting the basics of sleep, hydration, and then nutrition, of course. I think that you're in Nigeria. Is that correct?
yeah. I'm in Nigeria.
So I don't know how the fast food and the food industry, I have no idea what that looks like in Nigeria, but in the United States, our food industry is horrible. And so even if you're trying to eat really healthy, which a lot of people don't, they don't even care. They're like, well, I'll just eat fast food and McDonald's and Chipotle and Chick-fil-A. Like your nutrition is just not going to be there. So again, it's kind of the boring stuff, but that's really where I would start. And then if I want to get kind of to the next level, journaling is probably my number one recommendation for the clients that I work with. It's like you need to be doing the same check-in that we do during therapy every single day for yourself. You constantly need to be checking, like what I was describing with the metacognition. What am I thinking about? How am I feeling? What is triggering me? Why do I feel angry? Why does my stomach hurt? What's a conversation I need to have today to help myself? Do I need to make a list so that I feel more organized? Like just that mental check-in. And I talk about this so often, Aro, that I actually wrote at my own guided journal. I don't know if that's okay for me to promote here, but it's a very simple guided journal that I sell on Amazon. It just prompts people to reflect on these things that I would ask them to reflect on during a therapy session. So I think journaling is another really productive way to make a big difference in your mental health.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Maggie. So,
Yeah.
Maggie, why are men and high achievers often resistant to therapy? And how do you meet them where they are?
Beautiful. Great question. So I think, just, I don't know, again, I would be so curious what it's like in Nigeria, but in the United States, there's just a stigma that, big boys don't go to therapy. If you're tough, you don't talk about your feelings. Is it the same sentiment in Nigeria?
Yeah, yeah, it's the same.
Yes. Yes. So it's the same here. I think that our generation is the first generation of men who are like, you know what? That's really just not working. Like, it's not working to be angry and to yell and to throw things and to punch walls. So I have to learn something new. So I think that's something that is a easy, like I have an easier time than probably prior generations because I think men are catching on to like I don't want to be so angry. Like I want to be able to be emotionally available, not just for my partner, but now for my kids. So yeah, so I think we're up against the stigma, but I do think it's working in our favor. And then in terms of the high achievers, again, I think that there's that like macho, hey, if I can figure out how to run my business and make $1 million and marry a beautiful woman, why would I need your help in figuring out my trauma? And so just helping them see that like, hey, you've tried everything that you can think of. Let me help you. Let me teach you some new things that you haven't learned before. And I really believe, like, I'm not trying to take the power away from men. You are the expert of your life. You know yourself better than I do, but I can give you some tools. Like I can be a reflection and I can do some trauma work with you to help you grow.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Yeah, thank you so much, Maggie. So, lastly, Maggie, for someone listening who feel broken and hopeless, what will you want them to know?
Yeah, I think that something that has really been a theme in the men that I'm working with and helping right now is that you're so not alone. Like I think that's another like stigma that we have to work to overcome with men is that and women too, for sure, but especially men, because men don't talk about these things. So it does really feel like no one's ever felt the way I feel. No one's ever felt as broken and lonely as I feel. And it's just simply not true, right? Like I get to see man after man after man during my, week and months of the work that I do saying very similar things. And so just helping to encourage them that like A, you're not alone. Other people have felt this way too, and they have gotten out of it, right? Like they have recovered, they have healed, they have felt better. That's the difficulty with mental health, is that our brain does try, like, can trick us at times into believing that it's always going to feel like this. And I think that's why, well, I know that's why a lot of people don't want to do the trauma work, because they're like, well, why would I go back to that? What if I get stuck there? I don't want to feel that sad, because what if I can't get out of it? And that's just simply not true. Like I've done it with hundreds of people. Is like we go there, we feel the hard feelings, we talk about the hard thing, and then we grow, and then we move out of it. We learn skills to help ourselves get out of those situations. It's not a bad thing to feel hard things. It's a bad thing when we stay there, and we don't have to stay there.
Yeah, amazing. It's not a bad thing to actually have those hard feelings, but staying there is a bad thing. Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. So, Maggie,
Yeah.
for my audience who want to connect with you, who want to get your journal too, and who want to reach out to you for coaching and everything, how can they reach out to you, and where is the best platform?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Our handle is Rehoboth Therapy. So it's REHOBOTH therapy. And yeah, and then I don't know if you would be comfortable linking the guided journal that I wrote, because of the licensing laws for therapists. I can only work with clients who are in the state of Arizona. So it's pretty limiting. That was another reason I wrote the guided journal, is so people all over the world could benefit from the things that I'm discussing. So yeah, so that's called The Therapeutic Journey by Maggie Mccane. Yeah,
Wow,
I'm
amazing.
happy to link it on Amazon. But that would be a great way to, like I said, not only does it have prompts, but in the back of the guided journal, it also has my favorite resources that I recommend to a lot of clients. So it's all in one place. Like this is the
Okay.
feeling wheel that, especially with men, this is where I start, because they don't know what they're feeling. They know anger, but it's like, okay, let's talk about shame and embarrassment and disappointment. So I just some really good resources in the back too.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Maggie. Maggie, thank you for sharing your perspective and the work you are doing to change how we think about healing. For those listening, Maggie resources and guide journals are linked on the show notes. This has been the Making of Me podcast. Once again, it's really a pleasure and honor having you on the show, Maggie.
Thank you so much, Ara. Really appreciate it.